Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Chloe. So today I'm gonna show you guys how I do my brows. Let's just get into it. So you can see that my brows are definitely not the fullest, but I do have a decent amount of hairs and a very decent shape. I believe I need to trim them up a little bit. I did trim them recently, but I feel like there's a little bit more trimming I could do. But I like to brush them out and see kind of how they're sitting as is. I did such a bad job trimming this last time. I have these little scissors here I like to use to trim them. I got them with a nail kit. I like to take my spoolie and push the hairs up, which is the direction I want them to lay. And just hold it in place. I don't want to take off too much. A nice way to get all the really long ones is to pull it down and see what overhangs. Okay, that really just cleans them up a little bit. I did not take that much off. I never really like to. Less is totally more. It's really easy to F up. The super nice thing about brows though is that it grows back within a couple weeks. So even if you go a little too short, it's not gonna be fun for a couple of weeks, but it's only a couple of weeks. So when finding the shape of your brow, there's a few points you wanna use to help you mark it out. And this is going to make sure that your brow is tailored to you and your face shape. So for starters, it should begin not at the widest part of your nose, but from the bulge of your nose. And I'm just using like a brush. That should be the front of your brow, which that is where mine is, so I'm good. For the arch of your brow, you do want to go from the outside of your nose and cross directly in front of your eye. And that should be your arch. And for the tail of your brow, go from the outside of your nose, outer corner, to there. So my brows are a little short, but I have to be honest, I do shave the tails of them off because I just kind of like it a little bit better. But technically, if I'm following my rules, I would go down a little farther. I always like to start with them nice and combed out, and then I'll go in with products. There's a couple different pencils I like. I've got the e.l.f. brow pen here in Auburn and the NYX brow pen here also in Auburn. Although they are very different. This is the e.l.f. one. It is a pretty thick tip. You can't really sharpen this. Here is the color. And for comparison, here is the NYX one. It is so teeny tiny. It gives you a very precise line. This one you also can't sharpen, but I don't really feel like I need to because it's so tiny. Here's the NYX swatch. Oh no, I just broke it. You guys can already see that color difference though. One is so much more neutral, the other one is so much more pigmented. I would say the one, like the e.l.f. one, where it's a little bit bigger is really good if you want a super filled in, like pigmented brow. But the NYX one, the smaller one, is a little bit better if you want to draw the brow hairs and be a little bit more precise with it. So the way I usually do mine is by starting at the front of my brow, and I'm using the e.l.f. pencil here. I'm starting it where my brow hairs start. And I just like to draw a straight line, with this one being a little bit thicker because I usually do always go in and clean it up. I don't mind if the line isn't totally perfect or it's a little bit messier. Once I have that bottom line kind of in place, I like to go to the top. I personally don't like to super go over my arch line. I just follow the shape. And then from there, I just like to fill it in. To go through and comb that in. Combing it through just helps soften the product a lot, but it means that you'll definitely have to go in and clean it up. For the tails of my brows, I usually like to take a brow pen. The one I have here is my NYX Lift and Snatch in the shade Auburn. I just like to take this guy on my tail and draw a couple hairs. All right, on my other eye, I'm gonna go in and use the NYX. I'm just gonna start where my brow hairs start. Again, not all the way towards the front of my brow. I like to leave that with a little less pigment so it looks more natural. And at the base of where the brow hairs start, and just kind of draw my line straight back towards my arch. I'm starting at the line and I'll just flick up to fill in the center of my brows a little more. Taking that same NYX brow pen, I'll create a few hair strokes. As you can see with the skinnier one, because it is so much more precise, it is so much cleaner, and I could get away with not cleaning it up with concealer on this eye, but this eye, I'd definitely want to clean up with concealer. I really like finishing off the brow with some kind of a brow gel because it creates nice separation and you can really see the texture of your natural brow hairs. Right now, I have the NYX Thick It Stick It brow gel. This brow gel does have fibers in it to help add volume and make your brows look even thicker. I just like to brush them up. Again, I'm kind of avoiding the very front of my brow. I want to give it one little brush stroke or two just because of the pigment. I don't want it too pigmented. I also have this in Auburn. I'm just using my Too Faced concealer in the shade Very Fair. I'm just grabbing a teeny tiny amount. Definitely want to be careful with this not to go too far into the shape we just created. So I'm starting a little bit lower than I would think, and I can always bring it up. Once the line is created, I will just go in underneath it to blend it out. I am also going to clean up this one because I like the way that it looks when it's cleaned up with concealer. It definitely makes them stand out more. It's usually the front of my brows that looks a little too full. And there you are. There are your nice bold brows. Now, the other thing is, depending on what products you use is going to change the way that your brows look. If you want a softer look and it to look more natural, like just hairs and not so outlined like mine are, you'll probably want to use something more like this brow pen. This is just felt tip. You can get a really skinny, fine line from it. Another thing that would work nicely for that look is a like brow pomade that you could use with a super skinny angled brush. That like fluffy brow, model brow look. A pencil just gives you a much more filled in look. So it really depends on your style and your vibe. Sometimes I switch it up and I do like the model brow look. Ugh, I just feel so much more like done with my brows done, you know? So that's gonna be all for this week's video. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe down below if you have not already, and leave me a like because it really helps me out. I'll see you guys in the next one.